Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 Mods Weekly, the show where we take a look at some of the really cool and interesting mods that come out in the past week for Fallout 4. Now, this week was a little bit slow. We did have a handful of really cool and really important releases, though that's pretty much it. The rest of the week was all not safe for work mods, which obviously I can't cover, nor do I want to. Anyways, the few mods we do have, though, are very, very cool and offer some really awesome stuff. We've got a brand new set of really cool power armor and a couple of new weapons and even a huge update to an old weapon. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in with the first mod, which is the Bastion, a Soviet power armor by Neeher 43. Now, this is a really cool mod for a couple of reasons. First of all, it adds an awesome new lore-friendly set of power armor with a really cool aesthetic, but also this mod was kind of made by the community. While most of the assets were made by Neeher and a handful of other authors, this mod was voted on by the community. Neeher put out some different concept art, and the community got to decide what exactly the power armor would look like. And then once that was done, Neeher made it, and this is what the result is. And I have to say, this is a really cool project. There's been a few modders who have done the community vote stuff before, and I'm really happy to see more community integration in the modding scene. It's such a cool concept, and definitely helps to keep the community alive. And this is just a really cool set of power armor. If you want to get your hands on this thing, there's actually a brand new dungeon made by Eleonora that you have to head over to. It's pretty small, pretty simple, but it is very cool. If you want to get there, you're actually going to need to head over to Lexington to a brand new location, which is the Lexington Maintenance Tunnels. Once there, you simply head inside. There will be a teensy bit of combat, just a few turrets guarding the place, but at the very end, you will find this brand new set of power armor. And this thing is really cool. It actually comes with a surprising amount of customization for armor, as there's a ton of really cool custom skins, some of them very Soviet inspired and made by a handful of authors. Most of these are made by Neeher, but I believe there is one by D. Polari. Altogether, this is an awesome set of power armor, one that I think fits perfectly in the world of Fallout, especially the way it's integrated as a unique armor in its own special location, with a little bit of lore hidden around the room that helps it make a little bit more sense in the Commonwealth. Altogether, this is absolutely fantastic stuff as usual by Neeher. Definitely one I'd recommend checking out if you're a fan of power armor or want a new collection for your settlement. Now, the next mod we're checking out is an interesting little 2-for-1. It's actually kind of two weapons in one pack, although it is just one weapon. I'll explain in a minute. We're checking out the BB Gun Homemade Coil Gun for Munitions by Micalov. That title's a bit of a mouthful, but it definitely explains just about everything. This is going to add a brand new BB gun into the game, specifically a Red Ryder, made out of mostly vanilla assets with a couple of custom textures. This makes a BB gun, and much like you'd expect, it's useless. The BB gun is not very good in combat. It is definitely intended for the early game, boasting a whopping 2 damage. It doesn't do a whole lot. Literally fighting some of the easiest enemies in the game, this thing can't do any damage, even with a huge headshot multiplier mod I have installed, so it's not that great. But because of the way this mod is made, you can upgrade this thing over at the weapons workbench and turn it into a coil gun. So it will still use BBs as its ammunition, but now it has the assistance of a sort of railgun platform to help speed up that projectile and make it do a bit more damage. Now, this isn't going to be an overpowered coil gun at all. Again, it's still just using BBs, but it's going to make it so that those BBs actually have enough force to do something. And that makes for a really cool Fallout-y weapon with a whole bunch of Nif Bash assets, some cool custom textures, and altogether just a really neat aesthetic. Now, as for the BB gun itself, it is, for the most part, a reskinned lever action. It does use the same animations, but I'm actually really happy with how Micalov had them turn out. It looks like you're actually loading BBs in there, not an entire bullet, so that's a really cool use of vanilla assets. And the animations are exactly the same on the Coil Gun version, you just have a much cooler looking model with a bit of sci-fi gubbins on it. Now, the other part of the title you may remember is that it does require munitions, and this is going to be a hard requirement as there's no BBs in the vanilla game, but Munitions does offer BBs. For those who are still confused about Munitions, by the way, all this mod does is add a few of the missing ammo types from past Fallout games. It is not intrusive at all, and it's a great addition to your game, and it makes mods like this possible, so it's something I'd recommend you try out, and they just got a real big update that's pretty cool. I may talk about that a bit more in the future. Now, by far the coolest thing about this mod is how you actually obtain it, because this does not have your generic leveled lists or crafting recipes. No, the BB gun is an interesting weapon because not many raiders or gunners or anybody like that is going to be using this thing. Instead, you can actually find it occasionally on children. Yeah, that's a pretty interesting drop, and in the vanilla game, you're not really going to be able to take it from them, so that's interesting. Now, there's also a couple of other spawns. There is one that actually spawns in Sean's room, so you can pick that up from your house whenever you go back to Sanctuary. It was the idea that this will be given to Sean once he grew up a little bit, but, you know, that didn't quite happen. Additionally, in Sanctuary, if you head over to the root cellar, you can find some of the parts necessary to upgrade this thing to the Coil Gun so that you can actually have it be a bit more viable as a weapon. So yeah, definitely a very interesting new weapon mod. The BB gun itself is pretty garbage, but it is still a really cool addition, a classic weapon from Fallout, and definitely something you could hang on your wall at the settlement. But the coil gun itself is definitely viable, especially with some upgrades and perks. Now, that takes us to our next mod, another classic Fallout mod, and that is the Riot Shotgun Unofficial Update by Crash and Cumble. Now, if you're not familiar, the Riot Shotgun was a mod that came out a long time ago by Cumble, and then got some animations by WarDaddy, and now there is a new overhaul by Crash. This is going to add some major tweaks to the weapon and how it performs, as well as a handful of new attachments, which add even more customization to this weapon. Now, if you're a fan of the Riot Shotgun like I am, this is definitely a much needed update. The original Riot Shotgun mod was excellent, but it left a little bit to be desired in terms of customization, and I've always wanted some more attachments for this thing, and now we have them. So if you want to use this, you are going to need the base Riot Shotgun mod, obviously, and also you're going to need the custom animations by WarDaddy, which, to be fair, is something you should be using with this weapon anyways, as they are a whole lot better than the vanilla animations. Now, with this mod, you are going to get a few stat adjustments. It's going to increase the base damage of this weapon to perform a bit better than the vanilla shotgun, so it will be a bit more of a late game option. It does also increase the value of the weapon to reflect the change in the stats. We will also be getting some new attachments in the form of a recoil compensating stock that will give it an actual stock instead of just a pistol grip, and we also have a handful of barrel options, including some shield barrels and even a brand new suppressor. In the base mod, all you got was a muzzle brake and a compensator, so the addition of a suppressor definitely helps for those of you who play stealthier characters. Additionally, with this mod, we get a whole suite of brand new leveled list injects, so this weapon will spawn on a greater variety of enemies. It will now spawn on Rust Devils, the Nuka World Raider gangs, Gunners, Gunner bosses, Raiders, Raider bosses, Railroad agents, Minutemen, Wasteland bosses in general, vendors, and of course, even legendary drops after level 25. This mod even adds new custom sounds to the Riot Shotgun instead of vanilla shotgun sounds, courtesy of the Power Riot Shotgun mod. On top of all of that, there are some minor adjustments to some crafting and perk requirements, and together this makes for an awesome new revamped Riot Shotgun. So if you've been using this mod already, or maybe you've never seen the Riot Shotgun whatsoever, I'd highly recommend picking this one up, as it gives it a whole lot of new life and definitely adds some more character to this classic weapon. And finally, that takes us to the last mod of this video, which is the Photon Disruptor by Neeher. Now, I did cover this mod earlier in the week, giving it a full breakdown, but in case you didn't see that, I'll talk about it briefly here. This is a brand new energy weapon by Neeher, made specifically for the Institute, and this thing is fantastic, featuring a beautiful new weapon with custom models and textures, as well as a whole suite of custom animations for this thing. A quick note, the textures are made by the wonderful D. Polari, who makes excellent textures, and of course the animations are made by Neeher, and the animations in this thing are top notch, and there's a whole lot of them. Specifically, you actually get different animations for different races, which is really, really cool. The idea behind this weapon is that it was actually made for Gen 1 and Gen 2 synths. Given that they are robotic in nature, they have a little bit more versatility with their limb movement, allowing them to use this weapon much more efficiently than a typical human could, allowing for faster reloads and better use of the weapon overall. Now, while this was intended for synths to use, human players can still use this. They will just have their own separate animations, which I think is really, really cool. But there's actually a bit more customization to the animations than that. There are some optional files for people who are playing as players who have synthetic limbs or are playing as synths in general. And with that, you can download different animations to apply to your player that are a bit more correct. So if you are playing as a synth or somebody who has maybe a prosthetic arm, you can make use of some of those advanced animations, making your player even better with this weapon. Now, if you want to get your hands on this weapon, it is added to the game via leveled list injection and will start spawning on Gen 1 and Gen 2 synths. Now, this weapon was intended to be a precursor to the new Institute rifle, the one featured in the vanilla game, so you're going to see the regular Institute rifle a lot more often, but there is a rare chance that the Photon Disruptor may appear on a synth, but it will not spawn on Gen 3 synths or coursers or even Institute staff, as it was not intended for them whatsoever. I think the lore and the animations and everything fitting together with this mod is so awesome. It fits Fallout perfectly, the aesthetic is wonderful, and the time and effort put into this is absolutely fantastic. This is one I'd highly recommend for anybody to try out. It's a whole lot of fun. With that though, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed the mods. If you did, be sure to grab the mods using the links down in the description, and be sure to drop a rating, it really helps out the channel. Consider subscribing if you haven't already for more videos just like this, and a big shout out to all of my patrons for supporting every single video. And of course, a very special thank you to Avian4, Captain Chaos, Freedom, Glasma, Helljumper, Indecisive Wolf, Kid Hades, Cushy, Logan Rigmated, Madly Matt, Microhan, Moonlight Gamer, Oscar Scott, Sterling, Steven, Timmy, YouthRC, and Voider for joining that Tier 3 Patreon membership. If you'd like to support the channel and the mods I make over on Patreon, you can do so using the link down in the description, but it is completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Peace!